We have a direct relationship with Afghanistan. That relationship is not directed against any third country. And if a third country has illusions, well, we cannot help it.
Illusions, would you say, General Masood, how would you respond to that? That training the Afghan army is probably just a drop in the ocean in comparison to what the West has done, that is India training the army?
Well, that is true, but I believe that the government of Afghanistan and the Afghan army leadership is thinking more in terms of sending their officers to India. And by and large, this development obviously, unless the relationship between India and Pakistan totally normalizes, would be looked at with suspicion. So I think you have to understand the sensitivities that exist. I mean, in the sense that as it is, we don't feel that the present Afghan army is somewhat better disposed towards Pakistan. And if it is also trained in that way, and if our relations do not continue to improve, then the concerns will increase.
I'll just come to you, Ambassador. I'm just going to join on the phone line by Brigadier Gurmeet Kamal, Director, Center for Land Warfare Studies. Brigadier Kamal, thanks for joining us. I believe some technical problems, so that's why we're joining you on the phone line there. Ratcheting up in a sense from where India was in terms of training the Afghan army, what are your thoughts on that?
The Afghan army at present is ill-trained, poorly equipped and badly led. Particularly the standards of junior leadership need to be upgraded by an order of magnitude. And if they were to be trained by India, the results would be much better than the results that have been achieved by training through NATO and ISAF troops. And the ideal, in my view, would be to get there on the ground and train them in large numbers, a battalion at a time, so that the training is cohesive and carried out systematically. That would involve putting some troops on the ground for local protection. So it's a million-dollar question whether the Indian government would be willing to take that risk or not.
Right, Brigadier Kamal. In fact, so far, what we know is that India is avoiding sending training teams to Afghanistan because of the vulnerability of attacks, but there's going to be a rapid expansion in terms of platoon level and company level training, maybe at specialized institutions like the Commander School in Belgaum and the Counterinsurgency Jungle Warfare School in Mizoram, as well as High Altitude Warfare School in Sonamarg. But we just had General Talat Masood. He is still with us from Islamabad, voicing Pakistan's concerns on this. What are your thoughts on that, Brigadier Kamal?
Pakistan's concerns are genuine. In case Indian troops are there in Afghanistan, the concerns are genuine. That is why my suggestion is that Indian troops for training should be sent to the north to Mazar-e-Sharif or to the west to Herat, well away from Pakistan's border. That will address Pakistan's concerns to a very large extent.
Again, your thoughts quickly before I let you go. Negotiations are still stuck on an Afghan wish list, which includes a supply of tanks, artillery guns and ammunition. Do you think we should go that far?
We should give them everything that they ask for. We failed to do that in Sri Lanka, and we drove the Sri Lankans into the arms of the Chinese. Similarly, we failed to do that for Myanmar, and we drove Myanmar into the arms of the Chinese. Now we are trying to woo them back. We should give the Afghans every single item of military hardware that they ask for.
Right, Brigadier Kamal, thanks for joining us. Would have liked to have contacted you visually, but there was a technical problem there. The Director, Center for Land and Warfare Studies. Ambassador Kajul, you wanted to make a point, I think, earlier.
Yes, I think the point being made in Islamabad is that we should show sensitivities to their concerns because of improvement in our ties with Pakistan. Now, this is strange. Pakistan, for tactical reasons, has taken certain steps. There's no evidence of a change in strategy or a change in strategic thinking.
Okay. I just have to interrupt you because I'm going to lose the Islamabad link, so I just want to quickly go to General Talat Masood. You were talking about training of the army, but on another hand, we've seen some movement, whether it's step by step in terms of India and Pakistan trade relations, MFN status, other things that are moving along pretty well. Do you think that this will be an impediment to that, the larger question of Indo-Pak talks? General Masood, you have, I think, about 30 seconds before we lose you.
Well, I think, there are still some very strong resistance both in India and Pakistan against this forward movement, which I think majority of the people, though, welcome it in Pakistan as well as I hope in India too. But with this sort of developments, then these forces become more vocal and it becomes very difficult for the government to then proceed on the peace process. So I think we have to take this into consideration, to what extent India wants to get involved in Afghanistan, especially with this sort of a relationship which is rather fragile at the moment, but moving in the right direction.
Right, moving in the right direction. Lieutenant General Talat Masood, I do believe we'll lose that line there with you in Islamabad soon. Thanks so much for joining us here. It was a pleasure as usual. I just want to, before I come to you, Ambassador, get in some views or questions from the audience. I think some people had some questions here. Yeah.
Recently, Mr. Karzai made a statement that if Pakistan ever went to a war, we would support Pakistan no matter who the opposition is. In that context, how much this strategic partnership would benefit India?
I just want to clarify that has been a very controversial statement, but it was probably taken out of context. It was an interview to Geo Television in Pakistan. And if